Hi everyone and welcome back to the tiny tropical garden. This week I've really taken stock of just how much everything has already grown this year. The enormous and highly scented flowers on this Eurphorbia John Phillips cross pasturei are amazing. Everybody loves this plant, but it's starting to grow across the path, so needs some maintenance. Using a pair of secateurs, I cut the leaning stems close to the base as possible, being very careful not to get any of the sap onto my skin. The milky sap can make your skin light sensitive and can cause blistering and irritation. So needing to prune has given me the opportunity to take some cuttings from the small side shoots off the stem. If these cuttings successfully root, I'll be sure to let you know, as I know a lot of people have asked about where they can buy this plant. But beware, it grows very quickly and is almost outgrowing the Indian golden bean tree that's planted next to it, which will need to do a lot of growth to compete with the Eurphorbia this year. The next bit of pruning that was needed in the garden was cutting back the old scorched leaves of this Woodwardia radicans fern. As you can see, there's new fronds unfurling in the undergrowth, and I just want to give these space to grow out. The foliage of this plant is amazing, and each frond can be about a metre long, so it's a real stunner, but it's not looking good at this time of year. So I just cut back as low as possible, again with a pair of secateurs, and it gives the new fronds a lot more space and light to start unfurling. I've also been able to add a couple more plants to the garden this week, like this Fatsia polycarpa, which has really deeply lobed leaves and looks fantastic and tropical, but these are popping up everywhere at the moment. I've planted it just behind the stunning geranium, because as the geranium finishes flowering, it will die, and the Fatsia will fill out its space and mirror the Fatsia on the other side of the garden. And if you've been following along, you know that I now have 3 Fatsias on this side of the garden. This healthy, shiny looking thing is that sickly variegated Fatsia that we put in the ground that was getting very pot bound. The new leaves are looking lush and healthy, and I love the variegation. And a tiny bit further up the bed we had the Fatsia Spiders Web. Now as this plant puts out new leaves, it really does stand out in the garden. The new leaves are almost white, and as they mature, the green veination comes back into the leaves and the chlorophyll starts to form. These Fatsias are all hardy, but really add a tropical and jungly look to an exotic garden. I'd recommend them to everybody. And as the season rolls on, the weather is becoming reliably warm enough, at least in Dorset and on the coast, for me to start putting my banana plants into the ground. It's time for me to take this Ensete Murellii out of its pot and give it space to grow away through the year. I kept it in the pot last season, and you can see that it's really starting to get root bound. So before I plant it, I'll tease out a few of these roots and encourage it to put its roots out into the surrounding soil. I've also added this lovely deep purple Sambucus nigra blue sheen. Its intensely dark foliage will really help any summer exotic plants that I plant in front of it to pop out. And I've continued that theme of dark purple foliage at the back of the border with this Continus cogigrea. This is the royal purple. Again, this will help all of the plants in front of it to stand out, like this canna musifolia that I put in a few weeks earlier. I think I'm actually finally starting to be happy with this bed, because I've got the balance between evergreen structure with the Photinia and the grandiflora, punctuated by the deciduous purple leaves of the Sambucus and the Continus. This should mean that the bed will have year-round structure, but continually evolve to a crescendo in the summer. And this year, the bedding that I'll be planting in front of the shrubs are these dark-leafed cannas, which I divided on the vlog a few weeks earlier, and these dahlia tubers, which a friend's given me. I also had the unexpected surprise of these Asiatic lily bulbs coming back. I'll admit I completely forgot about them, and when I turned over the bed they popped up everywhere. But now I've moved them all to the front of the bed and they should put on a nice bit of colour early in the year. Now, one of my Museba stew bananas is putting out new leaves which are uniformly quite yellow and pale, which probably means a lack of nitrogen. So I'm going to just mulch around the base of the plant with my grass trimmings and perhaps a sprinkle of fish blood and bone, and this will just help A, keep moisture in the soil, and B, feed the banana as it grows away at the start of the year. And my makeshift greenhouse has turned into a makeshift cold frame. I use this just to harden off the seedlings and cuttings before I plant them out. And how many weeks has this geranium been flowering for? The more it flowers, the closer I look at it, and it really is amazing. Even the stems holding the flowers are covered in tiny hairs that look like they're covered in frost. And each tiny flower looks so exotic, almost like those hibiscus flowers you see on dodgy swimming shorts and Hawaiian shirts. It's just a plant that I think is unsurpassed at this time of year. It's so big and so intensely colourful, and it's not just the flowers. Even the leaves are enormous and look really, really exotic and really add to a tropical and jungly garden. And just behind the leaves is the stem, which is just made up of a series of folded down leaves, which this plant actually folds the leaves down as it comes into bloom, and I'm sure it's to support that sheer weight of the amount of flowers at the top of the plant. And as I look around the garden, each little nook and cranny is filling out with plants and starting to flower, and it's giving that really natural look that I was hoping to achieve. And the ferns and Alchemilla mollis that I rescued from other people's gardens last year that looked a bit out of place here are finally starting to grow in situ, and they look fantastic curling up from under and around the decking. And this teeny tiny fern is fantastic. Each frond is only about 2–2.5 centimeters long, and it's just loving this shady spot under the log. And the Alchemilla mollis is starting to get enough foliage to do its signature move of catching raindrops and holding them like jewels for the light to shine through. And I've finally set up a Patreon page for the Tiny Tropical Garden. So if you're interested in helping this community of tropical and exotic plant enthusiasts grow, then please check out the link in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, click subscribe and comment below if you've got any tips or questions. See you all next week. Ciao!